Anika Rao arrived in Dubai carrying little more than a suitcase and a fragile hope. At 26, she had already faced hardships that would have broken many, but she held onto a dream, a chance to build a life far from the struggles of her hometown in Kochi. The promise of a residency visa was more than just a legal document. It was a ticket to safety, stability, and a future where she could support her family without fear. Yet, this hope came with risks few could see at first glance. Fisel Al-Mansour was a man whose wealth and status made him a fixture in Dubai's elite circles. A widower with a sprawling villa and a fleet of luxury cars. He seemed to have everything. But beneath the surface, his life was marked by loneliness and a need for control. When Anika and Fisel's paths crossed, what began as a cautious connection soon grew into an affair that promised security but carried a hidden cost. Have you ever wondered how far someone might go when caught between desperation and the desire for a better life? Do you know anyone who risked everything for a chance at safety, only to find themselves trapped in a situation they never expected? This story is not just about love or betrayal. It is about the price of survival and the dangers that can hide behind wealth and power. Stay with us as we reveal the truth behind this fatal affair and the lessons it holds. Anika's journey began with small steps. Sewing and mending at a boutique in a mall where luxury met hard work. She sent most of her earnings back home, saving every dirham for the residency permit that would change her life. Fisel noticed her there, a young woman with cautious eyes and quiet strength. Their conversations started with polite questions and grew into dinners and whispered promises. In a city where discretion was currency, their relationship was both a shield and a risk. Fisel's generosity came with expectations. He wanted loyalty and silence, a companion who would fit into his carefully controlled world. Anika wanted freedom and a future beyond the visa, a chance to open her own tailoring shop, to give her brother a better education, to bring her mother to Dubai. These hopes clashed with Fisel's need for control, setting the stage for tension that neither could ignore. As their affair deepened, Fisel's jealousy grew. He installed cameras, monitored her phone, and questioned her every move. The security Anika sought became a cage. Arguments replaced quiet dinners, and silence grew heavy with fear. The man who had promised protection became a source of pain. Then came the accusation, a whispered threat that Anika planned to use the sponsorship to escape with a portion of Fisel's wealth. Whether true or false, the suspicion shattered what little trust remained. On a humid night, voices rose, a crash echoed, and Anika's life was forever changed. This is a story of two lives intertwined by hope and desperation, power and vulnerability. It is a reminder that the search for security can lead to dangerous bargains, and that behind the glittering towers, shadows often hide. Join us as we uncover the events that led to a brutal murder and the lessons that echo beyond the headlines. Dubai is a city of extremes, where towering skyscrapers rise from endless deserts and luxury cars glide past humble homes. It is a place where dreams are chased with fierce determination, but the cost of those dreams is often hidden beneath the surface. For many migrants like Anika Rao, Dubai represents both hope and hardship, a chance to escape poverty and build a better life, but also a world filled with challenges few outsiders fully understand. Anika's story began far from the glittering malls and shining towers. In Kochi, her family lived a life marked by struggle and uncertainty. Her mother worked tirelessly to keep the household afloat, and her younger brother's education was a constant worry. From a young age, Anika learned the weight of responsibility, knowing that her choices could change the course of her family's future. When the opportunity came to work in Dubai, she took it without hesitation, carrying with her the hopes of those she left behind. Her first job was at a boutique in a busy mall, sewing and mending clothes for customers who rarely noticed the hands that kept their wardrobes intact. The work was hard and the hours long, but Anika was determined. Every dirham she earned was carefully saved and sent home, a lifeline for her family. She took on part-time event work to supplement her income, learning the rhythms of a city that never truly sleeps. The mix of languages, Arabic, English, Hindi, Malayalam, filled the air, a constant reminder of the diverse lives intersecting in this place. Life for migrant workers in Dubai is often precarious. Residency permits are tied to employment, and losing a job can mean losing the right to stay. Many women like Anika face daily harassment and uncertainty, their futures dependent on the goodwill of sponsors and employers. The promise of a residency visa is a powerful motivator, offering medical care, legal protection, and a chance to build a stable life. But it also comes with strings attached, and the system can trap those it is meant to protect. Have you ever felt the pressure of carrying not just your own dreams, but the hopes of an entire family? Do you understand what it means to live with the constant fear that everything you've worked for could be taken away in an instant? For Anika, every day was a balancing act between survival and ambition, between caution and courage. In this city of contrasts, wealth and poverty exist side by side. Faisal Al-Mansour was a man who embodied the glittering side of Dubai. A widower in his late 40s, he moved through elite social circles with ease. His villa was a symbol of success, filled with luxury cars and expensive art. Yet beneath the surface, Faisal's life was marked by loneliness and a need for control. His public generosity at charity events and the mosque masked a private world where suspicion and jealousy simmered. When Faisal began to notice Anika at the boutique, it was the start of a connection that would change both their lives. Their relationship was shaped by the unspoken rules of a city where convenience often replaces commitment. For Anika, Faisal represented a chance at security, a sponsor who could offer her the residency visa she so desperately needed. For Faisal, Anika was a companion who could fill the silence left by loss, but also someone he could control. Faisal Al-Mansour was a man who moved through Dubai's elite circles with a quiet confidence. A widower in his late 40s, he carried the weight of loss beneath his polished exterior. His sprawling villa, luxury cars, and social standing made him a figure of influence and respect. Yet, behind the public image was a man grappling with loneliness and a need to regain control over his life. When he first noticed Anika Rao at the boutique where she worked, it was more than a passing glance. There was a curiosity, a spark of something that would soon grow into a complicated and dangerous connection. Their first encounters were cautious and measured. Faisal sent bouquets and messages, gestures that seemed generous but carried an unspoken expectation. Anika, aware of the power imbalance, approached the relationship with care. For her, Faisal represented a path to the security she sought, a sponsor who could offer her the residency visa that would change everything. For Faisal, Anika was a companion who could fill the silence left by his late wife's absence, but also someone he could control. As their meetings became more frequent, the nature of their relationship took shape. Private dinners replaced brief messages, and whispered promises filled the spaces between them. In a city where discretion was valued, their affair was a delicate balance of appearances and hidden truths. Anika learned to navigate Faisal's moods, balancing patience with boldness. She understood that trust was fragile and that power was unevenly shared. Faisal's generosity was not without conditions. He expected loyalty and silence, a quiet acceptance of his control. Anika, however, had her own ambitions. She dreamed of independence, of sending her brother to a better school, of opening her own tailoring shop. These hopes clashed with Faisal's need for dominance, creating tension beneath the surface. Have you ever been caught in a relationship where love and power are tangled, where trust is a fragile thread stretched thin by fear and desire? Do you understand the cost of survival when the stakes are this high? This story reveals how such connections can become traps, where hope and danger walk side by side, and where the line between shelter and prison blurs. Their affair was marked by moments of tenderness and conflict. Faisal's public generosity masked a private volatility. He was quick to jealousy and suspicion, interpreting Anika's independence as betrayal. Her refusal to disclose every detail of her life, her occasional freelance work, and her messages to friends back home became sources of friction. The relationship was no longer just about survival. It had become a battleground of control and resistance. Anika found herself sleeping in a rented bed in a spare room of Faisal's villa, a space that was hers only in name. The sponsorship he promised was a lifeline, but it also tied her to him in ways she hadn't fully anticipated. The security she sought was complicated by the demands Faisal placed on her freedom. As the months passed, the relationship between Anika and Faisal grew more complicated. What had started as a cautious connection became a tangled web of emotions, ambitions, and control. Anika's hopes for a better future were tied to the sponsorship Faisal promised, But the cost of that security was becoming clearer with each passing day. Faisal's generosity was undeniable. He provided Anika with a residency visa, medical coverage, and a lifestyle far beyond what she had imagined possible. Yet, this generosity came with expectations that weighed heavily on her. Faisal demanded loyalty and silence, expecting Anika to fit into the role he had carved out for her. He wanted control over her movements, her friendships, and even her thoughts. The freedom she sought was limited by the invisible chains of his jealousy and suspicion. Anika, however, was not willing to surrender her dreams entirely. She continued to work freelance shifts, determined to maintain some independence. She sent money home to support her family and saved for the day she could open her own tailoring shop. These small acts of defiance sparked tension between them. Faisal's jealousy grew, and with it, his need to monitor and control her increased. Surveillance cameras appeared around the villa, watching Anika's every move. Faisal checked her phone, questioned her about every message and call. The villa, once a place of refuge, became a prison. Arguments erupted over minor issues, voices raised in frustration and fear. The balance of power shifted, and Anika found herself trapped between hope and despair. Have you ever felt the weight of control disguised as care? Do you understand the fear that comes when love turns into possession? This part of the story reveals how easily protection can become imprisonment, and how the search for security can lead to dangerous compromises. Despite the growing tension, moments of tenderness still appeared. Faisal's generosity and occasional kindness reminded Anika of the life she hoped to build. Yet, beneath these moments lay a simmering conflict that neither could ignore. The relationship was a fragile dance of power and resistance, trust and suspicion. Anika's ambitions clashed with Faisal's need for dominance. She wanted to build a future on her own terms, while he sought to maintain control over every aspect of their lives. This clash created a pressure cooker of emotions, where love and fear coexisted uneasily. The sponsorship that once seemed like salvation now felt like a chain. Anika was caught in a web of expectations and demands, her dreams shadowed by the reality of Faisal's control. The villa's walls held secrets of arguments, silent tears, and unspoken fears. The tension between Anika and Faisal reached a critical point as suspicion and fear took hold. What had once been a fragile balance of power now teetered on the edge of collapse. The rumor that Anika planned to use the sponsorship to gain permanent residency and then leave with a portion of Faisal's wealth spread quietly but with devastating effect. Whether the source was a jealous ex-lover, a scorned friend, or a relative angling for control, the accusation shattered the fragile trust between them. Faisal's reaction was swift and severe. His jealousy turned to panic, and his need for control became desperate. The villa, once a place of refuge, became a battleground. Surveillance cameras recorded every movement, and Faisal's scrutiny of Anika's phone intensified. Arguments erupted over small things, voices raised in anger and fear. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken threats. On a humid night in late October, neighbors reported hearing raised voices and a loud crash. The security guard found the front gate open and called emergency services. Inside the villa, chaos awaited. Furniture was overturned, glass littered the floor, and Anika lay unconscious in the study. Faisal was on the phone, disoriented, telling responders that Anika had fallen and he had tried to help her. Paramedics rushed Anika to the hospital, where doctors worked through the night. The official cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head, resulting in a fatal cerebral hemorrhage. The manner of death was ruled homicide, turning the quiet accusation into a criminal investigation. Faisal, the only adult with access to the house that night and bearing minor injuries himself, was taken into custody. The night's events were a tangle of conflicting accounts and forensic clues. CCTV footage showed Faisal's car leaving and returning to the villa late that night. Call logs revealed a flurry of messages between Faisal, his relatives, and Anika's friends. Forensics found Anika's fingerprints on a vase on the floor, suggesting a struggle, and a smear of Faisal's blood on a torn curtain, indicating injury or a staged scene. The accusation that had sparked the conflict now fueled the investigation. Faisal claimed the injuries were accidental, the result of a heated argument that got out of control. The defense painted him as a man under stress, destabilized by grief and financial setbacks. Anika was portrayed as an opportunist whose lies provoked tragedy. Witnesses added complexity. The housekeeper testified to quarrels but no physical violence. Friends spoke of jealousy and control but also of Anika's plans to return home. A neighbor's audio captured only shouts and a single loud thud. The story was messy, human, and far from clear-cut. Have you ever faced a moment when everything you believed was questioned? Do you understand how fear and suspicion can cloud judgment and lead to irreversible consequences? This part of the story reveals the fragile line between accident and intent, between love and violence. The breaking point was not just a single night, but the culmination of months of tension, control, and fear. It was a moment when hope gave way to tragedy, and the search for security ended in loss. The investigation that followed Anika's death was intense and complex, revealing layers of truth and contradiction. Fisel Al-Mansour, the only adult present at the villa that night, became the focus of the inquiry. Authorities examined every detail, from forensic evidence to witness testimonies, seeking to piece together what had truly happened behind closed doors. CCTV footage showed Fisel's car, leaving the villa late in the evening and returning shortly before the security guard raised the alarm. Call logs revealed a flurry of messages between Fisel and his relatives, as well as between Anika and her close friends, in the hours leading up to the incident. Forensic teams found Anika's fingerprints on a vase lying broken on the floor, suggesting a struggle, and a smear of Fisel's blood on a torn curtain, indicating he had been injured or had staged the scene. The prosecution argued that these pieces of evidence told a story of escalating violence and control. Fisel's jealousy and suspicion had turned dangerous, culminating in a fatal confrontation. They pointed to the surveillance cameras, the hidden expenses in Anika's name, and the financial transfers as signs of a motive rooted in fear of exposure and loss of control. The defense countered with a narrative of accident and intimacy. Fisel's lawyers described him as a man under immense stress, destabilized by grief and recent financial setbacks. They portrayed Anika as an opportunist whose own actions provoked the tragic outcome. The defense emphasized Fisel's call for help and his minor injuries as evidence of a struggle that got out of hand rather than a premeditated attack. Witness testimonies added layers of complexity. The villa's housekeeper spoke of frequent quarrels but denied witnessing physical violence. Two of Anika's friends recounted Fisel's jealousy and control but also confirmed Anika's plans to return home after securing residency. A neighbor provided audio capturing only raised voices and a single loud thud, leaving the exact sequence of events unclear. The case sparked wider discussions about migrant rights and power imbalances in Gulf states. Advocates highlighted the vulnerability of domestic and service workers, the challenges of the sponsorship system, and the social invisibility of immigrant women. Supporters of Fisel worried about a rush to judgment against a wealthy, well-connected man. Forensic experts played a crucial role. A second independent autopsy confirmed the blunt force trauma, but suggested the fatal injury could have resulted from a fall against a heavy object during a confrontation, rather than a direct strike. This ambiguity became central to the trial's outcome. The court faced the difficult task of weighing conflicting evidence and testimonies. The verdict reflected this complexity. Fisel was found guilty of manslaughter rather than premeditated murder. The judge cited the lack of clear proof of intent, the chaotic nature of the scene, and the emotional volatility of both parties. Have you ever struggled to see the full picture when faced with conflicting stories? Do you understand how truth can be elusive, shaped by perspective and circumstance? This part of the story reveals the challenges of justice when human emotions and imperfect evidence collide. The trial was not just about guilt or innocence. It was a reflection of broader social issues, power, vulnerability, and the fragile nature of trust. It showed how justice can be both served and limited by the realities of human complexity. The court's verdict marked a turning point in a story filled with pain and complexity. Fisel Al-Mansour was found guilty of manslaughter, a decision that reflected the ambiguous nature of the evidence and the emotional turmoil that had defined the relationship. The judge acknowledged that while a crime had been committed, there was insufficient proof of premeditation or intent to kill. The sentence was severe but stopped short of the maximum penalty, signaling the court's recognition of the chaotic and deeply personal circumstances surrounding the tragedy. For Anika's family, the verdict brought a mix of grief and a sense of partial justice. They mourned the loss of a daughter whose dreams were cut short and grappled with the knowledge that the legal outcome could not fully account for the hardships she had endured. The Indian consulate in Dubai maintained contact with the family, offering support amid the difficult process. Community members and migrant rights advocates expressed both relief and frustration, highlighting the broader issues of vulnerability and power imbalance that the case had exposed. Fisel's life changed dramatically. Once a respected figure in Dubai's elite circles, he retreated from public view. His social standing diminished, and his fortunes waned. The villa that had been a symbol of success became a reminder of loss and consequence. The man who had sought control found himself isolated, facing the repercussions of a relationship that had spiraled beyond his grasp. The boutique where Anika had worked honored her memory with a simple plaque, a small gesture amid the larger tragedy. Her mother returned to a routine shaped by grief, while her brother continued his education with the help of scholarships raised by sympathetic donors who had followed the story. The family's life was forever altered, marked by loss but also by the resilience to carry on. This verdict and its aftermath highlight the limits of justice in cases where human emotions and social structures collide. The court's decision acknowledged wrongdoing but also reflected the challenges of proving intent and navigating complex personal dynamics. It underscored the reality that legal outcomes often leave questions unanswered and wounds unhealed. Have you ever faced a moment when justice felt incomplete, when the truth seemed just out of reach? Do you understand how the law can both protect and fall short? This part of the story invites reflection on the imperfect nature of justice and the ongoing struggles faced by those caught in its wake. The case became a cautionary tale within Dubai's expatriate communities, a reminder that beneath the city's gleaming surface lie stories of vulnerability and risk. It sparked conversations about the sponsorship system, the rights of migrant workers, and the need for greater protections. For many, Anika's story was a call to awareness and action. As we move forward, it is important to remember that behind every headline is a human life, shaped by choices, circumstances, and the search for dignity. The aftermath of this tragedy continues to resonate, urging us to look beyond appearances and consider the deeper forces at play. The story of Anika Rao and Fisel Al-Mansour is more than a tragic crime. It is a reflection of the complex realities faced by many who seek security and dignity far from home. It reveals how hope and desperation can lead to dangerous choices, and how power imbalances can turn protection into control. Anika's journey began with a dream: to escape poverty, support her family, and build a life on her own terms. Her determination and courage were undeniable, but the system she entered was fraught with challenges. The sponsorship system in Dubai, designed to regulate migrant workers, often places women like Anika in vulnerable positions. The promise of residency and legal protection can come with hidden costs, including dependence on sponsors who may wield control over their lives. Fisel's story is also a cautionary tale. A man shaped by loss and loneliness, he sought companionship and control in a world that had shifted beneath his feet. His generosity was shadowed by jealousy and suspicion, creating a relationship marked by tension and fear. The tragedy that unfolded was not simply a crime of passion but a consequence of deeper social and emotional forces. Have you ever considered how systems meant to protect can sometimes trap those they serve? Do you understand the human cost of power imbalances and the fragile nature of trust? This story urges us to look beyond headlines and consider the lives behind them. The lessons from this case extend beyond the individuals involved. They call for greater awareness of the vulnerabilities faced by migrant workers, especially women, and the need for reforms that protect their rights and dignity. They remind us that security is not just a legal status but a state of being that requires respect, fairness, and empathy. For those who followed Anika's story, the message is clear. The search for safety and opportunity can lead to perilous paths, and the price of survival is often high. It is a call to action for communities, governments, and individuals to recognize and address the inequalities that persist as we close this chapter. We thank you for joining us in exploring a story that challenges us to think deeply about justice, power, and humanity. If you found value in this story, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to support more content that sheds light on important issues. Share your thoughts in the comments. Where are you watching from, and what lessons do you take from Anika's journey? Are you still with us? Let us know. Together, we can raise awareness and foster understanding, ensuring that stories like Anika's are not forgotten and that the voices of the vulnerable are heard.